gauge how fast you're going across that thing. But as you mentioned, day one, August 1. Here we go with a new week, a new month, and some new laws here in Louisiana. So let's get to our Kelly Hubbard. Steps away from the state capitol where those laws were passed recently. Kelly, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Matt. Numerous laws that were passed in this year's regular legislative session go into effect today. And like Johnny was mentioning, and you too, Matt, as well, the Atchafalaya Basin Bridge, if you're traveling along that, maybe you take it to work every single day, you're going to want to pay attention to this one. The 18-mile stretch of the basin has been known for several accidents and fatalities. So the legislature decided to do something about it. Our WAFB political analyst Jim Inkster says if you drive the distance under 19 minutes, you will get a ticket. Now, if you keep doing it, he says you might get a ticket for $1,000. So think about that the next time you're driving it. There are also 3 new laws pertaining to marijuana here in Louisiana. Officers can't use its smell for a reason for a warrantless search of a home or car. Also, if you test positive and you have a medical condition, you can't lose your job. On the other hand, smoking or vaping it in the car is also now illegal. Inkster says the new laws are adjusting to the new world of marijuana use.
Most people view their home as their castle and they don't like strangers coming in, even if they're wearing a badge and have a gun. But this is a case in which in the past, if there was the smell of marijuana, which was against the law, there was probable cause. So now you just can't do that.
There are some big talkers here. In total, lawmakers passed more than 700 bills during the 2022 regular session. There's also the Louisiana Crown Act, which looks to stop employers from discriminating against their employees for maybe a certain particular hairstyle that we have. We're going to break that down for you in the next half hour. Matt.
Federal prison are accused of violating COVID protocol, leading to a spike in cases. This week, a California senator questioned the federal chief of prisons about those reports.
My office has received reports that BOP personnel at FCI Mendota were flouting COVID protocols, leading to the transportation of COVID-positive detainees and spikes in infections.
Senator Alex Padilla asked Bureau of Prisons Director Michael Carvajal why a compliance team was never sent to Mendota to investigate those reports. He also addressed the ongoing staffing shortages the prison has been facing. Prison union officials say they're grateful for Senator Padilla and hope federal leaders will direct more resources to Mendota's facility.
Crack down on illegal contraband and violence in state prisons. How are they doing that? By adding more drug-sniffing dogs to prisons. Here's 7 News reporter Sandy Torres.
More trained canine teams will be coming to more state prisons. This is an effort to slow down the flow of illegal contraband like drugs. Acting Commissioner of the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, or DOCS, Anthony Annucci, decided to do this after some guidance from the Prison Violence Task Force. President of the union that represents correction officers, Mike Powers, says tracking drugs is only a part of the benefits of this initiative.
Violent times, very rough atmospheres, and we're looking to do everything we can as soon as we can to help reduce the amount of violence and the stressors that already come with the job.
Powers says fewer drugs means less violence. Powers says there's already drug-sniffing dogs in state prisons, but the new initiative will provide needed help. The NYSCOPBA president says violence in prisons has risen since April 1st. That's when the Humane Alternatives to Long-Term Solitary Confinement Act, or HALT, went into effect for state prisons. That limits how long prisoners can spend in special housing units. He says turf wars and attacks on correction officers are more common.
And it all stems from violence. And we're looking to eradicate that, and whether or not it's through through discipline, which is certainly just in many of these assaults that we're seeing, because they're vicious on correction officers, but more importantly, along with the lines of contraband that bring the violence.
Assemblyman Mark Walczak says, quote, COs have seen Albany lawmakers turn their backs on them, especially after HALT went into effect. This move is the least the state could do to better protect correctional officers. The department got this one right. State Senator Patty Ritchie says drug-sniffing dogs in prisons will go a long way toward reducing the influx of drugs and other contrabands. Sandy Torres, 7 News.
Confinement in juvenile detention centers across Tennessee. A News Channel 5 investigation exposed the practice, and lawmakers quickly passed a law to stop it.
That's right. The new law forced the Department of Children's Services to rewrite the rules covering juvenile detention centers. But investigative reporter Ben Hall found the devil is in the details.
It's a massive rewriting of rules for juvenile detention centers in Tennessee. The marked out sections on this 50 pages of proposed rules show what DCS would remove. And the red, which sometimes fills entire pages, is the new language DCS is proposing.
It just seems a little bit unclear.
A recent public hearing focused on how DCS and the detention centers it oversees define and use solitary confinement.
In fact, the proposed rules leave the question of how long youth will remain in seclusion open-ended.
DCS was forced to rewrite its rules after a News Channel 5 investigation exposed a loophole that allowed juvenile detention facilities to lock children in their cells for days at a time on something called room restriction. Lawmakers were outraged that juveniles were being placed in solitary confinement, often for extended periods of time, and passed a law banning the practice.
The message was that we have to do something.
Lieutenant Governor McNally told us last year the new law passed despite concerns from juvenile detention operators, some of whom cited low staffing levels and dangerous kids as reasons for keeping juveniles in their cells for extended periods. Some centers are privately owned and contract with the state. Others are run by counties.
In my opinion, what the rules do is they open it up to more solitary confinement.
Zoe Jamail with Disability Rights Tennessee reviewed the proposed new rules and says they don't do what lawmakers intended. Her organization recently published a report about abuses, including solitary confinement, at the DCS-run Wilder Youth Development Facility.
If the intent is to end long-term seclusion, these rules will not do that. They fall short of putting in the safeguards that are in the statute.
The new rules adopt the definition of seclusion passed by lawmakers, but then lists 7 exemptions, including for medical reasons, for suicidal behavior, and for protection from harm by other youth. Disability Rights Tennessee says the exemptions are poorly defined and could lead to more solitary confinement.
They have created, by this rule, a loophole which is larger than the original loophole.
Disability Rights Tennessee was concerned they did not know about 2 previous meetings when the rules were actually written that were attended by juvenile detention operators.
I think that it is troubling that the creation of these rules was preceded by at least 2 meetings with providers who are subject to these rules.
DCS said the draft rules were written in licensing standards committee meetings attended by juvenile detention operators. DCS said advocates never asked to attend the meetings.
There was no notice, and we weren't involved.
Now that advocates know about the rulemaking process, their goal is to truly ban solitary confinement in juvenile detention centers, as lawmakers intended. That's why they say this proposal does more harm than good.
We should be limiting the circumstances under which youth can be kept in seclusion.
These proposed rules are not final. That is still a few months away. Advocates say now that they know about the process, they will be pushing for changes. Ben Hall, News Channel 5 investigating.